Okay, welcome everyone. I've been trying to figure this out. Okay, great, you're back. So, Donna, I'm going to resume our plan, which was for you to talk through the Idaho Editors Association, tell people about our group, what we do, and then I'll hop back after I make sure that all the tech stuff is working for the IEA. So go ahead.
All right, so the Idaho Editors Association is a group that Stacy and Kim and I started to just kind of give a network opportunity to local editors, Idaho editors, and it's been a great thing for instruction and support. It's been given us a chance to pass referrals along to one another. It's for editors of all levels of experience. We have members who are just starting their business. We've got others who've been doing this for years, so it's for, it doesn't matter where you're at in the process, and we have a lot of different kind of editors too. Some of us focus on book editing, fiction, nonfiction. Others are in magazines or editing for the corporate world. Before we started, Stacey and I were talking about how there's actually a lot of diversity in this group in terms of what people are doing with their business. So, if you're in the editing business, it's a good group to be in. We're a pretty casual organization. There's no yearly dues or anything like that, but it's really valuable for people who are actively participating. Because we have such a small group, there's still a lot of knowledge and expertise and experience in this group, so it's really a good resource, and we're able to meet the needs of people pretty quickly since it's a small intimate group. So if people have a problem that they're trying to work through, or a challenge that they're running up against, or just a question, we can usually address that pretty quickly. Our biggest offering is the monthly luncheon, where we focus on a different topic each month. We've done everything from business financials to finding new clients or vetting clients, time management, all sorts of things. So the luncheons tend to be a combination of presentation and just discussion. They are on the second Wednesday of every month from noon to 1:30, and it's at Bella Ikea Restaurant in Eagle. And we always post details about the upcoming meeting on our Facebook group, which I think Stacy put a link to that in the Hangout somewhere. I'm not sure how this works, but it's called the Idaho Editors Association, so you could search for it that way on Facebook, or the address is facebook.com/groups/Idaho Editors. We do have a lot of members who aren't able to come to the luncheon, so we do have things on the Facebook group for people who will participate that way. We try to put resources on there. And if you've got questions, don't hesitate. And just in general, if you've got questions, you can post to the group or contact Stacy or Kim Foster or I, and we'll be glad to help you out. So, yeah.
Great, Donna. Thank you. It looks like the link is working for most people, and luckily we'll be recording. So for those of you that aren't able to tune in now, you get to watch it later. So first off, I want to say that unfortunately we weren't able to get Kim Foster to join us for this broadcast, and she was actually, you're supposed to be able to see her right now on the broadcast, but it didn't work out. So Sorry you're not here, Kim. Maybe you can join us partway through. But we'll just go ahead and jump in now. And I'm watching the Facebook group, so if you're having any trouble, just leave a comment on the thread that's at the top of the queue, and I'll do my best to take care of whatever issue you're having. One thing, if somebody could comment and let me know if the video is working correctly, where whoever's talking should be popping up versus just having one person broadcasting, that would be great. So if you could just shoot me a comment in the group chat or within the QA, that would be awesome. So first off, let me tell you, oh, sorry, go ahead, Donna.
I was just going to say, maybe let us know how the sound is coming through, too, if you can hear everything okay.
Yeah, you can let us know how the sound is coming through. I don't think the video is really working properly because Donna should be popping up when she's talking, and it's not really doing that. So hopefully we can get that sorted out. Otherwise, I'll just be the cameraman, and I'll pull people up as they're talking to make sure that you guys can see the person that's actually talking rather than just me the whole time. So let me tell you a little bit about how this webinar works. I've activated the QA. So what that means is that at any point during the broadcast, you can ask questions. And what I'll be doing is I'll be keeping an eye on the questions, and I'll be selecting questions along the way that will add to our discussion. And it's a queue, so I can kind of keep track of them and go back to them later in the webinar, so we make sure to touch on everything. What we've done is we've prepared a series of questions for Natalie based on a bunch of feedback that I got in the Facebook group, and we'll be going through those first and then adding in your questions as they go. I think there's also an option for applause within the webinar, which I think is kind of fun, so if you feel so inclined to give Natalie a round of applause at any point, I'm sure she would appreciate that. Again, just to note that this video will be available for later use, so you can always go back and rewatch it and skip past all the technical difficulties to get the great information. And with that, let me just introduce myself, and then I'll let Donna tell you a little bit about herself, and then we'll jump into Natalie. So Donna, or actually, sorry, I'll start with me. So I'm Stacy Ennis. I am a writer, editor, book coach, creative consultant. And I am co-founder of the Idaho Editors Association along with Donna, and Kim Foster, who's not here, is also a huge help and on the board of the IEA, which is our acronym for the Idaho Editors Association. Donna, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm an author and a freelance editor. I have some books published, and then I also work with book-length projects, both fiction and nonfiction, working with the city of Boise to get a book, a third edition put out for that, and yeah, just do a lot of different projects. Probably in the next year or so, they'll all be full-time writing.
Great, perfect. And I'll get to Natalie in just a second, but I want to take a second to make a couple of announcements. And Donna, I'll let you jump in after I share a couple of things. So first, I want to remind everyone in Idaho that Pitch Fest is happening May 7th, which is not this Saturday, but the following Saturday, so it's coming up. And that's through the Idaho Writers Guild, and you'll have the opportunity to pitch your work to New York literary agents one-on-one. They have no local people this year. And you can also learn from professional editors in the industry. So these are people from outside of Idaho that have come in and can review your manuscript for you. Those manuscript evaluations might be closed at this point, but there's panel discussions and all kinds of other cool things going on with Pitch Fest. So visit IdahoWritersGuild.com for more information on that. Also, since we don't have a formal meeting this week, please go on the Facebook group and post your announcements so that everyone knows what's going on and any cool things that you have to share, since we don't get the opportunity to do that in person. Someone in the QA is saying the sound is a little garbled, and I think that is partially because Donna, I don't know if you or Natalie have headphones on. So if you, okay, so maybe you might want to turn your sound down a little bit, just so that there's not as much feedback for the audio. So thanks for that feedback, guys, and let me know if it starts to sound a little better. I can also mute, once we get started, what I might do, Donna, is mute yours for a little bit while Natalie's talking, and then I'll unmute you, so that would make the sound a little better. So Donna, do you have any announcements?
No, I think you covered it.
Perfect. All right, so we get over to Natalie. Natalie, welcome. We're so excited to have you here. And our topic today is PR tips to gain visibility and attract great clients. We've put together, like I said, some pre-prepared questions for you, and then I'll also be watching the QA stream so that we can respond to your real-time questions and make sure that this is really interactive. Natalie and I met, let's see, what was it, 3 years ago?
2013.
Yeah, 2013. And Natalie was the publicist for my book, The Editor's Eye, along with being the publicist of tons of other books at the time. But I really credit Natalie with getting me, really helping me take my visibility to the next level. And part of a real tangible thing that resulted off of that is I am in the top 5 search results on Google if you Google Best Book Editor. And I really credit a lot of that to Natalie getting me placement on top website, television interviews, podcast interviews, all kinds of things. And so I was really excited that she was willing to give her time today and share some of those strategies with us. Let me tell you a little bit about Natalie. So Natalie started her career in publishing over 5 years ago with Perseus. Did I say that right, Natalie?
Yeah,
Perseus Book Group. And she's now Senior PR and Communication Manager for Lonely Planet. So I'm sure most of you have seen the Lonely Planet guides. I lived with these for a couple of years while we were living abroad, and I've got a whole set of them. So this, if that sounded familiar but you weren't sure what it was, this is it. They're the blue guidebooks.
Thank you for using a prop.
During that time, she spearheaded book publicity campaigns with genres ranging from parenting to pop culture. And she graduated from UC Santa Cruz with a degree in literature and launched the Young to Publishing Group Bay Area chapter. So I'll be sure to post a link to that in the video comments once we're done here. And just to note that Natalie has prepared some slides for us, a slide deck for us, that I'll make available after the broadcast. So don't feel like you need to take a bunch of notes because you'll be able to access those afterwards. So welcome, Natalie. I'm so glad to have you here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go for it.
I just wanted to ask, what are some key tips for establishing expertise and increasing online visibility?
So Stacy was a joy to work with. I will just say that up front, because she did a lot of the things that I'm about to share with you as far as increasing your visibility. I have a presentation actually. Stacy, is that something you can show, or should I just move forward without screen sharing? Because I'm not sure that I can do it from here.
Yeah, I think because I have to monitor all of the questions, it would be easier if we just move forward, and then I'll just share that with the group afterwards. Does that work okay?
Yeah, that sounds perfect. So the first step, I would say, is just to make sure you have the key social media channels. Twitter is one of those channels that is going to come up first and foremost when you search for your name. Being active on Twitter is also very helpful. LinkedIn would probably be the second one, and Facebook and Google Plus are other ones that I would recommend. Always make sure in your portfolios or bios or anything, whether it's social media or a group you're a part of, that you include the keywords that are related to your expertise. So whenever you look up Stacy's name, editing is going to come up. So you just want to make sure that that's one of the first things people see. So you want to get to this point where people search for your name and it's synonymous with your expertise. Something else Stacy did really well, sorry to use you as a case study, but join discussions as much as possible, join online forums, webinars like this, anything to get you part of the conversation that's happening around your expertise, which is, for most of you, editing or writing. Make sure that if you do speaking engagements, I'd imagine some of you do, that you get photos as a result, and you, if possible, ask somebody to take a video of you, so you can use those things to build your portfolio, and ideally share them through channels like YouTube. Most people don't have enough content for a YouTube channel, but that's just one of those things you should be mindful of. Those are the things you can do that are easy and free. There are a couple things you can do if you want to invest a little bit, if you're really concerned about SEO. And one would be Google AdWords, which most companies use. If you don't know Google AdWords, you're essentially just buying keywords. You're associating your name with some of the keywords associated with what you do. Another way to get increased SEO would be to send out a press release, as long as it's newsworthy, using a service like PR Web or PR Newswire. Yeah, that's about it.
That's great. Yeah, and something you mentioned that I didn't really think about early on was getting people to come to events that I was doing and capture photos and videos, because I realized a couple years into it that I was missing an opportunity to triple or quadruple the effect, because once I started capturing that, I was able to write blog posts about it with pictures. I was able to share the videos. I was able to expand my reach even beyond that particular speaking engagement.
Yeah, and also using social media while you're there and tagging people helps a lot, just for engagement. And yeah, I mean, that's part of my my main takeaway, I think, from today would be to make your content go farther. So what you can do to get as much of what you have and put it in as many places as possible.
Great. Perfect. So when we talk about social media, what do you think is really key for freelancers? So, the people in the Idaho Editors Association, and most of the people tuning in are writers, editors, are doing some kind of freelance. And so is Twitter the way to go? Is it, is it Facebook? LinkedIn? Where should people be?
Well, first, I would say that definitely don't invest too much into channels that you're not going to keep up. But I would say that it really depends on what your goals are. If you really want to drive traffic to your website and you want to do that through the community that you already have, Facebook is just absolutely the #1 drive of traffic. It's about 20%, I think, and that's counting all social media channels.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's, Facebook, it can be used professionally, it can be used personally. I would recommend, if you've had a personal one for a while, it's a little hard to get to the point, where it sort of is more of a professional platform. I personally don't use it professionally, but Twitter is a really easy way to share news, to start conversations, and that's really good for SEO, as I mentioned. So I would say Twitter is important. As far as people finding you easily, it would be LinkedIn, I guess, would be the most important channel for you guys.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I noticed that just after making a few updates to my LinkedIn profile, I really just rewrote my bio and spruced up my descriptions on there of my past experience. I suddenly had a flood of messages and people wanting to connect, and actually met a few clients through there. So I think I really undervalued that, but I see the importance of it, even just spending a couple hours strengthening mine.
Yeah, and maybe it's doing that gradually. I'm the same way. I forget about LinkedIn for a while and then go and make a bunch of updates, and you get a lot of interaction that way. But maybe do it once a week and just make some kind of tweak on your LinkedIn, and it shares that with your network. So that's a good way to stay visible on LinkedIn.
Great. So another question the group had was, what is essential to have on your website? So if you're on social media, and obviously that's important, but then when people come to you, what is it about a website? What needs to be done on a website to really attract those great clients?
I think starting off with a homepage that makes it very clear what you're about, and that might also be a creative name and or a tagline that immediately just tells people why you're there. It anticipates why they're there, so it addresses what people are looking for, whether you want that to be, let's just say, you want advice for editors right there on your homepage. So just make sure that's visible immediately. I would say that key sections would be a homepage, an About Me section, a blog, which we can get to later, what your services are about, clients and testimonials, if that's something that you want to share, and of course, a connect page, a contact page. So I don't recommend contact forms. That's just not my favorite thing. I think making your email as visible as possible is really key. And that means including it on channels like Twitter in your profile. Like you want it to be really easy to get in touch with you.
So what is it about the contact form in particular that you don't like?
I think it's just an extra step. If people in reality are putting feelers out there. And so they might be sending a very similar email to multiple, freelance editors that they're looking for. So it just makes it easier for them.
Okay, that makes sense.
Some optional ideas for sections on your website would include something like FAQs. So that could be frequently asked questions about your services, or it could be if you want to offer some valuable content, it could be, tell me about the different types of editors out there. And so it offers some basic information about editing that, potential clients could find valuable. A lot of people have speaking engagements in the media appearances. That's something that you would get to farther down the line. I know Stacy does. And including talking points in your speaking section is important. So if there are, let's say, 3 topics that you feel really strongly about, and you could speak to them in interviews and on panels, anything, you want that to be visible. And then I know that there was a question about prices. Stacy, did you want me to adjust that?
Yes, please.
It's a personal thing, but I might recommend a minimum. So this is where my packages start. I don't recommend putting it all out there, because I know, at least for freelance publicity and PR, there are so many different packages, and they can range from, I'll make a targeted media list for somebody if they want to go out and do their own pitching, and that could be, a $200 list or something. And it could range to a full-blown marketing, integrated campaign with social media and pitching and, last 3 months. So it varies so much from client to client that I wouldn't like prices to be visible, because they would, vary so much.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and I thought about that a lot too, and I've kind of wavered back and forth between, do I want to put prices on my website, because sometimes I feel like that would save me a lot of time, between people who really are looking for like bottom of the barrel cost versus the people that are my ideal clients. But at the same time, I feel like that really limits my opportunity to connect with people and interact with people. Even if I'm not the one to help them, I can send them to other people who can. So right. I kind of, and then the other thing is people can become married to whatever price is on your website. So if you say the editing, even if you say it starts at $3,000, let's just say, but you get a $10,000 project come in, when you tell them that $10,000 price, that's probably going to be kind of jarring to them, since they're expecting the lower number.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. So I'd like to touch on something that isn't even in our questions here, and just one working with a publicist to expand their reach?
Okay, yeah. So I actually have a couple slides on this.
Great. And hi, Kim. Welcome.
Thanks. I've lost video, so I don't know what's going on, but hello, everyone.
Hi. I'm sadly going to mute you right when you come in because of our feedback problems, but at least your lovely face is there.
Thanks.
All right, so back to you, Natalie.
So working with freelance PR professionals, I would say that it's a lot like how people might approach you as freelance editors. You definitely want someone, I would say, in your same field, so whether that's book publishing or magazine publishing, someone with some expertise in that area would be great, and especially if they've worked with lots of authors in a wide variety of topics and help them build their profile. Mm-hmm. I say that because book publishing PR tends to be very different than other industries. So it's good to find someone, you know, in your industry.
Great, but how can they actually work with somebody like that? What kind of services would they be able to offer? So you mentioned the list, potentially putting together a list, and I think people traditionally think of publicists as, you know, these like relatively long contracts or really short-term contracts that they go out and pitch a bunch of people. But what you mentioned is it sounds like there are different ways that you could work with somebody to kind of elevate your brand and get yourself out there, getting bigger clients and attracting people you really want to work with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so if you, let's say that you are going to publish a book, then the time to hire somebody would be around that time, of course. But you can hire somebody anytime. I would ask them what kinds of services that they offer. I mean, the targeted media list, that would be a combination of contacts that they've acquired over the years and using PR services like Focus and Cision, you might be familiar with. They're now actually the same. But they have access to, most PR professionals have access to these databases, which are huge, and they can put together a list for you pretty quickly. That's not to say that all publicists just give out their lists. I would say that you would have to have a pretty close relationship with them. Most of them will also, you know, actively pitch you. They'll come up with newsworthy hooks. They'll help you build your profile. Else? They'll identify opportunities for you to get your content out there. So that would include guest blogging and op-eds and that kind of thing. So I think the value in hiring someone would be the connections, which are accumulated over years, and it's not something that you can just pick up and take up yourself. And that's about it.
Well, I think that's a great point. And, you know, there are a few things that have continued to lead new clients to me since our work together 3 years ago. But one thing that I think is great is that you used your connections. I followed through with that connection you made. And then I'm now able to go back to those connections a few years later and say, hey, this thing we worked on together is getting a ton of visibility. It's still getting comments 3 years later. Do you want to do something together again? So it's not like it's a one-time thing. You're bringing people into these, making these connections that are building relationships that people can come back to over time.
Yep, absolutely. Yep.
So another question we had from the group is how important is content marketing? So we're talking, well, they said content marketing and publicity. So blog content, guest posts, podcasts, media appearances. And then they asked for some tips for guest posts.
Okay, great. So just to start off, I'll address blogging. I don't know how many of you guys have active blogs. It always seems pretty intimidating. It seems like a lot of work. And it goes back to my point about when you have content that you've created, you want to make the most of it. So just to go over how important blogging helps the SEO, it reinforces, your value proposition. It offers a channel for you to get a little more personal, offer case studies on, editor and writer relationships you've had in the past, demonstrates your expertise in the field, and shows that you're up to date on trending topics. So if you notice there's a certain trend or new, website for editors, and you have something to say about it, it gives you that space. And it just helps build, it builds your community. It's great to start to create dialogues from your blog. But what I would say, let's say that you have a piece that you can see in other places and you want to get the most of that, I would recommend, and this is where a PR professional might come in, pitching that to media first. And that can either be as an op-ed or a guest post. And if you want to shop that around, sometimes if you do land in the media, you can ask them if you can publish that on your blog, let's say a month later or so. So that's just an example of getting your content in multiple places and still keeping it and using it, for yourself and your own platform. And then another tactic I've noticed some people doing is pulling sound bites from their blog posts and sharing those gradually over their social media channels. So if there's something you like about a blog post and you think it's a good piece of advice for writers, then share that on your Twitter. And you might have 10 different tweets just based on one of your blog posts. I just have some basic advice on blog format strategy. So 500 words or less will do. Make sure that you are tagging keywords in your blog post for SEO reasons. And Kim, I think I noticed that you had a question about Google AdWords. So how do you make sure that you're using the right keywords in Google AdWords or tagging on your blog? I would say that you should look at other influencers in your field and see which tags they've used on their blogs. That's a good place to start. A lot of times they're visible, and just kind of follow in their footsteps. Yep.
And you mentioned repurposing, and we keep coming back to that, but I think it's super important. One thing I've started doing lately is republishing my posts on LinkedIn about a week after I publish them on my site. But I could be taking that way further, recording videos or podcasts on the same topics. What's kind of your rule of thumb with repurposing content? Do you have any suggestions or advice for people to help them kind of think about how to do that better?
Yeah, so LinkedIn, that's a really great point. There are also other channels where you can easily do this. Medium is one. I'm not sure how huge it is in the publishing world still, but that's a good place to put your content up. And it's okay to have that content on your blog and on Medium. Quora, I think, is another one. Again, more in the tech world. But still, useful to look into. Yeah, as far as repurposing, I would just say that you have valuable content, and it can be translated to work in any medium. So just be creative about the ways that that you're translating it to work for different channels.
Yeah, and I think that really it's just kind of remembering to do it, because I often forget, I get in the mode of creating content and then I realize, oh, I don't need to keep creating. I don't have to create new stuff all the time. I can actually go back and draw on things I did in the past or use this elsewhere and create create new things out of it.
Yeah. And you also have a published book, so there's a ton of content in there that you're able to repurpose.
True. So another question we had from the group is, how important are images or photos for attracting people to your website posts, and what kind of images work best?
I would say, first rule of thumb is if you have a professional photo that you use on LinkedIn or anywhere else, you want that same photo across all channels. I think just as far as consistency and being able to be recognized quickly. Like I said with the keyword, you want your photo of Stacey, and then you want Stacey Ennis to be also paired with editing. So you want all those things to sort of just click for somebody so they can see really quickly who you are and what you're about. I would say that in this industry, images are not hugely important. A lot of, more and more media use slideshows. A lot will run a feature and have a slideshow that relates to it. That just is sort of the trend these days. It doesn't really apply to a lot of publishing, except for, of course, cover images, and if you have, a book that includes photos, those are always good to offer media and to include on your website. As far as sort of design and images go on your website, keeping it clean and simple is just, a really basic rule I'm sure you've heard, but just don't clutter your website.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the other thing I'll add to that too is just, I hate those stock photos with like a bunch of people in the background and then there's one camera aware person in the front smiling. I mean, I feel like, it's just the same thing that you see all the time. So having really unique and interesting, I mean, you don't have to spend hours looking for something, super special, but having things that are a little bit different. And sometimes you just need a simple object, or you need something really just very clean and simple, and you don't need a person smiling at the camera. Yeah. I just feel like I see that so often.
Yeah, I agree. A trend on Instagram is a photo called a top down. So that just means the camera is from above looking down at a table with maybe like a writing utensil and an open book. And some other, a cup of coffee or something like that. So beautiful images like that sort of get across what you're about are great to share, and especially if you're an Instagrammer, that's the kind of thing that clients would want to see. And if you're launching a new book, seeing a stack of that book when when it gets to you and sharing that through different social channels is always good.
Yeah, I think that's a really good trend to point out. And if you guys want to see an example, you can go to my website under my blog. I had a guest post recently. I think it's maybe 2 or 3. I think it's 3 posts back. And it was from the intern that worked with me, and she did a post on travel. And so it's a picture. It's exactly what you're talking about. It's like a top-down picture of, there's like a travel backpack and a couple of things that go with travel. And I felt it was a really powerful image, a little unconventional and interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's huge in travel, which is why it's on my mind.
Yeah, with your line of work. Okay, so let's move over to newsletters. We had some questions about newsletters, and the whole topic is PR tips to attract great clients, gain visibility. How important are newsletters in achieving those things, attracting people to you? And if so, what is the best way to build a hearty list? And oh, by the way, sorry to interrupt, but Kim and Donna, since you're wearing headphones now, I've unmuted you, so please jump in at any point.
So newsletters are one thing that don't exactly help with SEO, because what they are is speaking to a community that you've already built up. So it's cultivating an audience that you've already earned. So I would say that would be sort of, if let's say that you're building your platform from the beginning, and you're going to use some of the tips that we went over today, I would start with the really easy SEO stuff, and then newsletters should be sort of your last goal. But of course, when you're at that point, they are really important. They're important for making kind of being a host of everything that you're about. So it'll be so easy when someone gets a newsletter to go to your Twitter page or your Facebook or know when an event is coming up. That's especially important if you have something timely, like you're on a panel or you have a speaking engagement or you're on a webinar, something like that. So yeah, it's important. I think it's especially important once you've built your list, and you asked about tips for building that list. You can just, I would say, make it really visible on your website on the homepage, and make sure that it's clear that your newsletter offers really valuable content and it's not just a sales pitch for you and your services. So something like, for more tips, you might offer a tip
I'll come back to that, but I started to just touch back on a point that you'd mentioned, which is where to start. You said start with the SEO and with getting kind of visibility, which I think is really important, because when we start talking about Twitter and LinkedIn and all of these different things, like posting on your blog and writing a newsletter, I mean, who has time for all that stuff? So I like that you pointed that out. And I'm curious, again, we'll come back to the tips on newsletter building, but I'm curious if you have a approach that works well. Like, where do you start and what do you build on? And do you have like start here, go to here, go to here, go to here last advice?
Yeah, so I would say starting with SEO, the easy stuff, is great. I think that the next step would be, I think, SEO stuff, getting that out of the way, and then really creating a great website would be your next step. Part of creating your website would be to collate testimonials and make sure it's really visible what you do, people that clients you've worked with that recommend you. That kind of thing. And from there, I guess, move on to newsletters or publish a book, I guess.
Great. But I think the key point is figure out your strategy and move through the strategy. Don't just jump in and produce a newsletter and a weekly blog post and be on Twitter 4 times a day and guest post, and I just think it can get really overwhelming. So what I hear you saying is there's a ton of different ways to approach this. You have to look at your specific needs, look at your goals, and then create a plan that works for what you want to accomplish and who you want to reach and attract.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Great point. So I would recommend, it depends on if you really want to build up your social platform, then start a social media calendar and create tweets, and maybe you don't have a scheduler like Hootsuite, but you can still have an Excel document saying this, on this day, I'm going to tweet about this. If there are annual events, are coming up, like, the Writers Month in November or Bookstore Day in April, that kind of thing. Just make sure that you cover those in your social shares. And same goes for, and I did skip a step, Stacey, when I was talking about doing the easy SEO stuff, working on your website, and then the blog. I mean, that's where you really need to plan ahead, because that's definitely, creating new content is one of the most overwhelming things. So I would recommend, like social, creating an editorial calendar, and also creating that content way far in advance and spreading it out. So maybe you write all your content for the year at the beginning of the year, and then share one blog post a month, and just spread it out like that, and then know how you're going to repurpose that content.
Mm-hmm. That feels way more manageable than a lot of the standard advice, which is, post 1 to 2 times a week, which, I mean, let's be honest, most of us are working way too much to be able to do something like that. But it's better to at least get things out on a regular basis, is what I'm hearing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Great. So I do want to come back to, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go for it.
Well, I did want to come back to the question of building your list, because I didn't want to skip over that. Yeah,
so I didn't have, the best advice. My point was that newsletters is, it's a great host for everything you're doing. So it's about cultivating the community that you've already built up. So to build it, if the newsletter is really important to you, I would say that visibility on your website is really key. Make sure that's at the top. Make sure that you give them incentive to sign up. So that would be, let's say you have a tips, and you say, for more tips, sign up for my newsletter. Make sure they know how often you plan on sending out newsletters. I don't think that you would be overwhelming, but I would say a quarterly newsletter is plenty. So 4 times a year. And it could be that after each blog post, you have something saying, for more tips like this, sign up for my newsletter, so that kind of thing. Just make sure that your newsletter is adding value, that there's something exclusive in your newsletter that your community couldn't get anywhere else, whether that's announcing a speaking engagement you'll be on, or a webinar or something like that.
Great. So question for you is, what is the biggest mistake you see people making in their attempt to attract, their ideal clients and generate interest in their business and brand?
Biggest mistake, I would say just stretching themselves too thin. So people who sign up for every single social media channel possible, and that's great to get your name associated with all those channels. But for people who, if you know that you're not going to be on Instagram, or Pinterest isn't for you, I, for one, I'm on most things for my job, but I don't understand Snapchat. I never will. So we have someone else who's actually not on our social media team at Lonely Planet, who takes care of that. So it's really just playing to your strengths. And if Twitter feels like a natural fit for you, then make that your strongest platform, and make that the first thing people go to. Because I would say that when you look at some of the influencers in the publishing field, that some people have really great Twitter feeds, and I go there as a resource. Or I really like their website. I know their blog content is really strong. So I guess just identify what your strongest points are, and make sure you're putting most of your energy there, and everything else can be secondary.
Awesome advice. So I want to bring Kim and Donna into the discussion. I feel really bad that you haven't been able to participate because of our tech glitches, but we'll get this figured out in the future, and it will be way more inclusive. So it's not just me asking the questions. So Donna, do you have any comments, reflections, questions for Natalie?
Yeah, I just want to talk about the newsletter thing a little bit more. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in my business, I'm not sure if that's really, is it necessary for me to have a goal to have a newsletter, or is it okay if I'm just focusing on a blog and social media, or is newsletter really important given what my business is?
I'm just one person, but I would say that it's not hugely important. It's about if you really want to cultivate a very specific community, but most of us don't have huge newsletter lists, and those don't, I think this was part of my answer that got cut off. But newsletters don't help SEO. They're not reaching a broader audience. It's all about just making sure your already established clients know what's going on with you. So if you're trying to reach new clients, I don't think that it does too much. Does that answer your question?
It does. That was kind of my thought too. That, like Stacy says, we're busy. We've got so much to do, and you have to prioritize. So it's not really been on my radar to do anything like that because I didn't feel that it was going to help me achieve my objective for this particular field. There's areas where it's good, but I think for me,
I don't want to discourage it, and they're great tools. An alternative, if you feel like you don't have time to do your own newsletter, and by the way, I would recommend MailChimp. I've used it forever, and it's great. Would be to offer, know someone who has a great mailing list and offer to give them some content for their newsletter, because chances are they're hungry for content, and it's a good way to drive traffic back to your website or whatever you're promoting.
Okay. That's a great tip. Kim, do you have any reflections or questions? To reach people about your product and bring more people kind of into your network, and hopefully they'll forward it or tell people about it. So like I said, I see Michael's tuning in, I see Renee's tuning in, and there's a few other people that have workshops or products or courses or things that are part of their business. And so tell me if you disagree, Natalie, but to me that makes it way more important to have a newsletter versus I'm a freelancer taking clients and filling up my yearly calendar.
Yeah, definitely. Especially if you have workshops that are timely, it's just the best way to reach your audience. And as I was saying, it hosts everything that you're about in one place. So it is a good tool. I was just saying, not the best for reaching new people, but
yeah, absolutely
really good to cultivate the audience you already have.
Yeah. I'm glad you clarified that, Stacey, because I do use it on the author side of what I do. My author side has been better. Yeah.
So Kim, I'm really sorry. So right when I went over to you, everybody cut out. So we've got a couple minutes here. So what can you add from a reflection or question standpoint?
Well, I was thinking about the testimonials and how important that is to add to your website. I've started collecting testimonials from different genres of type of editing that I've done, and I think that gives you a level of credibility that with potential clients, so that they know that you have skills in all these different areas. And I think, Natalie, I'd kind of like your advice a little bit. And at the very beginning, I was sort of fiddling with my computer trying to get things working correctly, and you may have addressed this, but I'm sort of wavering in whether to build up my website or to build up LinkedIn. I don't know how valuable the website is for me, and because mine is very, I don't write very much, I don't blog, and I'm thinking about starting that, and I like the idea of writing it all at once and then partitioning it out throughout the year. That seems to me not so overwhelming. But, I don't know. I'm sort of leaning towards doing LinkedIn, but I don't know if I should just build both up or concentrate on one more than the other. What do you suggest?
First, I would suggest that it's great to get your user or your domain name anyway, just for SEO reasons, but a website is a huge investment, and it does make sense to host a lot from LinkedIn, and it's nice that you have testimonials right there and then. You don't get to control the message as much, so I guess just that's something to consider. But you know, I think that for people who are crunched for time, and a website does take a lot of maintenance. It's time and money, and if you feel like you're going to be really active on LinkedIn, then it can be a really strong platform, and it can be instead of a personal website.
Mm-hmm. I guess I'm thinking of the time involvement, and right now I don't have the time to do the website, but LinkedIn, it seems more accessible to me. I can go in and update it if I need to and that sort of thing. So, but
yeah. So I'd recommend just investing in LinkedIn for now, and then maybe just creating a calendar for the next couple of years and see if that's an attainable goal way in the future.
Yeah. Thank you.
So great question, Kim. And I think that it's a theme we keep coming across, which is like, there's so many things you can do, but what do you focus on? So that
can on the platform that you feel comfortable with, and if you have a Twitter but you don't use it, make sure that you're directing readers to the platform that you are investing the most time in.
Mm-hmm. The other thing I've really heard as a theme is planning. So it's kind of the same advice I give people working on books, which is plan your book before you write it. What I keep hearing you say is have a strategy, create a one-year content, editorial plan, know where you're going. So I think that's a huge takeaway for today.
Yeah, and going back to working with PR professionals, a lot of authors think that they'll be able to handle, marketing and publicity, and then they hire a publicist a month before their book launches, and that's not a recommended strategy, because that doesn't give anyone enough time. You should be thinking about marketing a year ahead of your book, but that can be applied to what you guys do as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being here, Natalie. It's been a true pleasure, and I will be posting your slide deck and links to your site within the comments of this recording, and then I'll also share it on the Facebook group. So, Natalie, if people want to learn more about you or tweet to you to ask some questions that didn't get answered today, which I see there are a couple that we didn't quite get to, some questions on podcasts and a few of those, so you might get a few tweets with people asking about those. Where can they find you?
So my email is on the slideshow I shared, so anyone can feel free to email me. I do have to say I don't practice everything I preach, so I don't have a personal website, but I am on Twitter. Email is the best way to get in touch with me, and I'm always happy to help out fellow publishing industry people, so feel free to be in touch.
Yeah, you're great about that. You're really responsive on email. So, Donna, where can people find out more about you?
They can go to donnacookeditor.com or donnacookauthor.com, either way.
Awesome. And you're on social media?
Yes, technically.
You're on Twitter?
About 9 months ago, I really scaled back on social media and blogging to allow me time to actually write the books. So that's been my focus lately.
Okay, great.
And as you're writing a book, you know, you can start thinking about which content you wanna pull out and eventually share as well.
Yeah, that's great advice. And Kim, where can people find out about you?
I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm Kim Foster, and then I also do have a website that's not very fancy, but it's kimfostereditor.com, and my email is the same, kimfostereditor@gmail.com.
Great. And you can find me at stacyennis.com, and I'm at Stacey Ennis on Twitter. And after this, I'll get on Twitter and I'll able to make our meetings. You can join our Facebook community, and that's at facebook.com/groups/Idaho Editors. And as Donna said, our next event is May 11th at 12 o'clock at Bella Aquila in Eagle. And it will be a follow-up to this webinar on publicity and media. So we'll have media and PR expert Nicole McDowell, who I've known for years, and she's really fantastic. And she's going to take us through some practical steps. So we'll be building on the advice that Natalie's given us today to see exactly how to do it. And so she'll be talking to us about pitching guest posts, getting placement, and working with a publicist, and also any other questions we have. So please go on the Facebook group and let her know within the event tab, within the actual event, what you want her to cover, because she'll tailor that presentation to our needs, which is awesome. And you can learn more again about our group and about our events at facebook.com/groups/Idaho Editors. So thank you so much for joining us today.